Hi, my name is Karl, and today I'll be talking to you about the effects that risk-taking has on childhood and why letting children learn by experience helps them to grow as people and instills in them the skills that need to be successful and happy in life. I'd like to begin by giving you a little background on how I became interested in this topic and why I think you should care about it. So, a while ago, I found myself biking through my old hometown, passing the playgrounds and schoolyards that I remembered growing up playing at. And I was fondly remembering the times jumping off swings and flying off merry-go-rounds and seesawing on seesaws when I realized that some of my old favorite structures were missing. I couldn't find a single merry-go-round or seesaw, and many of the other structures had seemingly shrunk or gotten more boring. Okay. Intrigued, I did more research on this after getting home, and I found that I was not alone in this realization. Many people are complaining of similar things online, missing pieces of equipment, shorter monkey bars, and a general lack of the magic they remembered feeling in playgrounds as children. There were also many parents complaining about the trouble they were having finding a fun outdoor space for their kids to make new friends and play. This realization made me very sad, as some of my most cherished memories were formed on my school's playground, meeting new friends, playing intense games of capture the flag, and getting yelled at for getting tennis balls stuck in the ceiling. I felt that the time I spent playing outside on playgrounds, or really anywhere, was a very valuable part of my experience growing up. So, to realize it was being seemingly taken away from today's children felt very unfair to me. Digging deeper and reading through studies, I found out that my assumptions were correct. Studies have shown that preventing children from having these experiences hinders their early development, especially in areas such as making friends, learning coordination, and both emotional and physical resilience. Removing our ability to learn through trial and error freely may keep them safe from little bumps and bruises in the short term, but will hinder their development in the long term. Up to this point, I have been generally referring to this happening on playgrounds, but unfortunately it's pretty prominent in most aspects of life today. For a while now, there has been what many people refer to as an epidemic of bubble wrapping going around. The idea that parents must do absolutely everything in their power to keep their children safe from every possible injury, both physical and emotional. Now, I think it's important now to stop and acknowledge the fact that there is most definitely a responsibility on parents to stop their children from taking excessive risks, like underage drinking, speeding, or doing drugs, just to name a few. Those types of risks have extreme consequences that will always outweigh the possible gains. So, back to the topic of bubble wrapping. Overprotecting children prevents them from learning how to care for themselves. One article written by Colorado State University said that overprotection of people of all ages and abilities leads to feelings of helplessness and incompetence. This is just one of many articles I found that heavily criticizes bubble wrapping for its longer-term effects on children. Okay, another study took a look between the balance of physical play and safety said, injury prevention plays a key role in keeping children safe, but emerging research suggests that too many restrictions on children's outdoor risky play can hinder their development. This is even more evidence that overprotection impedes their development, but now let's get into why it does that. These early stages of childhood are when children's brains are developing extremely quickly. They can take many inputs, and denying them these experiences can stunt their growth. One study looking at biological, behavioral, psychological, and social processes that occur during adolescence said that the process of neuron proliferation and pruning occurring in the adolescent years results in a brain that is very malleable and adaptable in the face of challenges posed to its environment. AKA, the circuits of the brain are shaped through practice. This also cements the idea that humans learn through trial and error, and again proves that denying children learning experiences like running or falling and climbing too high is not good for their development. So, now that I've talked a little bit about the scientific reason it's good to let your children take risks in childhood, let's talk more about the practical reasons. When you're young, your body is more elastic. So, taking risks where you might get hurt is more acceptable because your body can heal quicker than when you're grown. Also worth mentioning is the fact that when you're young, there's rarely a moment when you're far from your parents if something were to go wrong. In general, as a society, we are moving away from experimentation. Children are discouraged from finding their boundaries through exploring their natural impulses, and this has long-term effects on their lives. One article I found that talks about how our recent generations have been starved of free time to play said, over the same decades that children's play has been declining, childhood mental disorders have been increasing. This article also touches on rising suicide and narcissism rates, and attributes it partially to less free time and higher amounts of stress in childhood. Additionally, a survey from a study I found reported that while 70% of US mothers reported daily outdoor free time play when they were children, only 30% of them reported their own children did the same. Europe, compared to the USA and Japan, hasn't had nearly as much of a problem with keeping their children occupied. For example, playgrounds in Germany tend to look very different from American ones. They tend to be built in natural areas and include high heights, abstract designs, and web-like structures that children are encouraged to play on. Taking everything I've talked about into mind so far, I'm sure you're starting to wonder, why is this happening? Why has the norm shifted from kids having freedom to explore and learn things for themselves to them being micromanaged on the playgrounds and their playgrounds being child-proofed? Specifically on playgrounds, a lot of simplifications have been made because of the number of injuries that happen on them. Many people online tell stories from when they were young about their friend flying off a merry-go-round and breaking their arm, or jumping off a slide and landing on a friend and hurting them. In many cases, incidents like these end up with equipment being removed. But that isn't always the best answer. The majority of children will go their whole lives without having a life-altering injury on a playground. And from 1990 to 2000, a child was 66 times more likely to die in a car accident than on a playground. That's not to say that there is an easy answer. In the event that a child is extremely injured, there may not be sufficient measures that can be taken to rectify that. And if there was one specific piece of equipment that could be blamed for their injury, it's fair to want it to be removed. However, 70% of playground injuries occur on public property, which can often be attributed to lack of supervision, so there are sometimes other things to be blamed. So, how can we encourage our children to take responsible risks and keep them safe while doing so? Firstly, it's important to find spaces for them to play in that they find challenging and interesting. Whether it's playgrounds or just a park with trees for them to climb in, having that space to explore and sometimes make mistakes is very valuable. To keep them safe, try to help them learn the difference between responsible and irresponsible risk-taking. You can do this by supervising them closely enough that you notice if they're taking a risk that you deem unacceptable, but not close enough that you are micromanaging them while they play. The main thing that I want you to take away from this presentation is that it's important to give children the freedom to play and get hurt. Kids are made to learn through trial and error, and stopping them from doing so not only prevents them from learning physical skills, but important mental skills like perseverance and making friends. So, in conclusion, encourage your kids to try new things and fail once in a while. And remember, sometimes the most important thing you can do for them is give them the space to fail. Thank you.